Association, who are putting on this event tonight in part of the club's international weekend for International Women's Day celebrations. It's great to have so many of you in the room. Thank you so much for coming out on a Thursday evening, and welcome to everybody who is joining us online this evening. We're delighted to present our second women's panel event, and I'd like to welcome back Dame Siobhan McDonagh MP, who is going to introduce the event for us this evening. Thanks, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. Doesn't seem like a year ago, does it, that we were at the first event last year. So congratulations to Wowza for putting on a second Women's Day event. I'm sure we'll all be at the match on Sunday. And I'm delighted to be here with my very good friend Tanya Percy, who's on the board of Wimbledon Women. And we look forward to coming and supporting everybody here and to hearing the insights of our great and esteemed panel. And my reflection on last year was that it was not only interesting to listen to women supporters of football, but hearing the differences that exist between different generations of fans, and what an important part women always play in organisations and voluntary organisations, and in exactly the same way at AFC Wimbledon. So have a fabulous evening.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Hannah Kumari. Oh, no microphone. There we go. Oh, that's better. Hi. I'm Hannah Kumari. I'm the Fans for Diversity campaign manager at the Football Supporters Association, and I've also recently taken over a new subgroup for the FSA, which is specifically about women's voices in the men's game. I myself am a lifelong fan of men's football. I'm a season ticket holder at Coventry City, and I'm really delighted to be back here at Plough Lane with an all-star lineup of incredible women making waves in the sports industry. So, and all of them have some kind of connection to AFC Wimbledon. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our panellists. We're joined tonight by Tammy Parler, MBE, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Women's Sports Trust, director of AFC Wimbledon Women, and board member of the Football Association Women's National League. Then we have Jenny Archer, MBE, former fitness coach for Wimbledon FC and coach of the 2012 Paralympic gold medal winning champion David Weir. Then we have Olympic gold medalist Sophie Hoskin, MBE, gold medal winning champion women's lightweight double sculls rower. And we also have Charlotte Samuelson, who is the Chief Operating Officer of World Rugby and the former non-executive director of Surrey County Cricket Club. So I hopefully like to make this a kind of interactive discussion. So I will be asking some questions to the panel, and as we go through the evening, kind of coming back to you guys to see if you have any questions or thoughts or reflections as we go forward. But I'm going to dive in, and I'll start with Jenny. So Jenny, you are a Wimbledon fan.
Yes, I'm a Wimbledon fan. I've been a fan since I was 12 years old.
Since you were 12. So did you grow up in the area, and what was your first Wimbledon game?
I live in Collierswood. I was born and bred in Collierswood. Wimbledon was the first game, and I can't remember who we were playing, but it was the Isthmian League at the time. And I remember two players that really stuck out. Was a guy called Brian Martin and Eddie Reynolds. And I used to love watching them play because they were like giants. But it was a fantastic club just to come and sit on the terraces and watch them play.
So Wimbledon were in the Isthmian. So the Isthmian League, which exists still today.
Yes, it does.
That was the same back then. That's the league that Wimbledon were in when you started going to watch. So you became a fan of men's football when you were 12 years old.
Yep.
But you were also you did athletics. Could you tell us a bit about how you got into sport and athletics? Like, did you come from a sporting family, or was
Not
it
really?
No.
No. I at school, I was quite a good sprinter at school. But when I left school, I took up 400 and 800 metre running, and I got to a certain level. and I felt like I wasn't going to go any further. So what I did, I stepped back and took on some junior athletes, started coaching them for multi-events, heptathlon, decathlon, and looked at, okay, maybe I should be a coach.
So that was, you've been a coach since then. That's kind of the only job that you've ever had, is being a coach.
No.
No.
No, I was teaching at my old school, Althea Middle, I think Siobhan knows. I was there for 10 years teaching there, and then from there I went into football.
Right, so what did you teach, if you don't mind me asking?
I was doing art and PE.
Art and PE, amazing. We're going to get into some more details and about your kind of history and experience and the things that you did in men's football, and specifically here at AFC Wimbledon later. But as someone who was working as a female fitness coach in the late 80s in men's football, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced during that time, would you say, as a woman?
I must admit, when I first went in there, I was invited in by Bobby Gordon, Don Howe. I was a little bit, shall I step back? But I thought, no, this is a challenge, and I like a challenge in my life. And I went in, and one of the players I actually knew was a guy called Andy Thorne, because he actually went to school with my son and daughter at Althea Middle. And he stood in the crowd, sort of ducking and diving, thinking, I know this woman, I know what she's all about. But I wasn't sure. I sort of went around meeting the players with Don Howe, and I must admit, Don Howe was great. He was a great mentor to have on my team.
He was an ally, would you say?
Yeah.
And
He was.
Sorry.
No, he was brilliant. He supported me in everything I was doing.
And we were just chatting before, and you were saying that you were actually a freelance coach.
Yes, I was.
So did
yeah.
he just come and approach you?
I had 3 athletes going to the Seoul Olympics, and one of them had a stress fracture, so I needed a physio quickly. And Steve Allen was running a clinic at Plough Lane. So I phoned up and said, look, I've got this athlete, can I bring him down? I need some help and advice on this. I went in and Steve sat talking to me, and he said, do you fancy coming and working with us? I went, oh, you're having a laugh now. He said, no, I've been serious. He said, they're looking to someone to come in and do athletics. He said, Don Howe feels that football will will go in that direction. He said, would you be interested? And I said, yeah. So I gave him my phone number. I didn't think any more of it. And on the Sunday, I was sitting having dinner with my family, and I got this phone call. My son answered the phone. He said, some geezer on the phone, calls himself Don Howe. I thought, oh my God. So I picked up the phone. He said, hello, Jenny, it is Don Howe. So I said, I'm really sorry about that. He said, no, it's all right, it's fine. So he said, can you come into the club tomorrow morning and meet me and have a chat to me? And I went in, I met him, Bobby Gould, sat and had a chat with him. And said, OK, you got me.
So it was actually Don Howe that had that kind of forward vision to think that football training was going to change from what it was to something that was more fitness and athletic focused. Right, that's really interesting.
It was. He was ahead of everybody else, the way he was thinking. And he said to me, what do you feel? And I said, no, I totally agree with you. You know, I mean, to be honest with you, they couldn't even touch their toes when I went in. So I actually took in 2 other athletes with me to teach them how to stretch before we started any of the sprint work at all.
I really just find it so fascinating. I think we were saying before, kind of Arsene Wenger, I think, gets a lot of credit for having revolutionised football training and nutrition in the 90s. But it seems like you were way ahead of that curve. And I think I remember you saying to me when we spoke that when you first came in, some of the players said to you, oh, we're footballers, we're not athletes. And what did you say to them? You said footballers will become athletes. And now we look at, you know, they're just elite sports people. So yeah, that's we'll come back to you in a bit, Jenny. We'll come on to Sophie now, if that's okay. You're also a lifelong Wimbledon fan.
Yep, I am.
Are you from Colliers Wood?
No, I'm from Wimbledon.
You're actually from Wimbledon, yeah.
Grew up kind of on and off in Wimbledon, so and got really, really frustrated with everyone at school who was Chelsea or Fulham fans, and no one was Wimbledon fans. So yeah, big fan, and kind of also did Wimbledon in the community courses in half terms and things. So that was how I got the opportunity to go to Selhurst Park for the first time, because we'd get a free ticket at the end of those courses. So back when we were in Selhurst Park, but yeah, fell in love with the club and have been a fan ever since.
So would you say that your kind of development and love of football at that age was tied up with going to the games? I had a really similar experience with Coventry. I started going when I was 12, and everybody at my school supported Man United and Liverpool, but I went to a game when I was 12, and I also just fell in love with it instantly, and my love of football has always been tied up with going to games and being a part of that live event.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it probably started playing and playing in the park with my brothers, but I think going to a game, being like part of that event, that sort of sense of community that you have, I think that's kind of contagious. So it was definitely accelerated kind of my love of the game.
And like Jenny, you were also very sporty from a young age, but how did you actually get into rowing?
Yeah, so I got into rowing through school, essentially. So I had a sports scholarship at my school, and they did hockey or rowing, and my dad had rowed and had actually been a world champion sort of, before we were born. So it was always something that I had in my head as something I'd like to try. But I kind of had that choice, and then went down the rowing route, which was a shame for my footballing career, because at that point I was playing football and I was actually playing for Wimbledon ladies, but kind of rowing got in the way, so had to kind of...
You had to pick. You couldn't continue with both of them.
Exactly.
You had to choose one that you were going to try and take to the top level, which is what you did with rowing.
Yeah, although maybe I made the wrong choice, but there we go. But I chose rowing, and that kind of obviously, it paid off in the end.
And quite a big question now. How did it feel winning a gold medal
Yeah,
at the London 2012 Olympics?
I can't say it's the first time I've been asked that. To be honest, probably the biggest feeling was a sense of relief. Like, it had been so many years of training, so many years of dedication, sacrifice, which obviously was all my choice, and that was what I wanted. But that's what you dream of. That's what you sort of wake up and think of every day, and you're training towards. And for it to actually come true, it was just a massive relief that it was worth all of that effort. And I think also along with that, it was gratitude for kind of everyone who'd played a part. There was sort of two of us in my case, two of us in the boat, but so many people who supported us along the way. And kind of getting to share that with them was pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. That's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm going to come to Tammy now. So, Tammy, you are English. We were chatting just before, but you moved to America when you were 11. When we chatted before, you were sort of saying that the landscape for sport for women and girls was quite different in America when you were growing up, in a positive way, I would think, because you've practiced martial arts your whole life. I'm going to try and say this, Hapkido, which is Korean. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I think when you're at that age, you don't really realise that you're having a different experience. You're sort of 11 years old, and you just kind of do what's in front of you. I think the differences I've noticed have been in hindsight, particularly around my experience of sport, particularly at school, was firstly you did it every day.
In America,
in America,
wasn't it?
an hour of gym every day. That was standard. Didn't really want to, but that was what we had to do. The other thing was it wasn't gendered, so we had 4 weeks of each sport that you experienced, be that American football, basketball, square dancing. I mean, come on, that was a fun one. I said the only one that was gendered was gymnastics, because did different things, and that was not my happy place. But when I came back to the UK, realising that wasn't everybody's experience, that sport is, or has been anyway, particularly gendered here, that kids aren't getting an hour of PE a day, I find quite shocking. And that wasn't my experience growing up in the US. For me, we moved over there, and all the sports were different. I'd been playing football and hockey and rounders and things before, and that just wasn't part of the curriculum at all. It wasn't American sport. I stumbled. I woke up and I decided I wanted to do karate. There was a Hapkido Korean grandmaster who had a school near me, so I started, and I haven't ever given up. So I've been practicing.
Do you still practice
yes,
now?
for 42 years. So I still have a club out near Waterloo. Did it full time for a chunk of time, and now it's just a couple of nights a week that I still coach.
Amazing. I'm interested to just dig into what you were saying about the PE. So I don't have kids myself, but are kids doing an hour of PE a day now here? Or because that feels like something that could just be quite like basic. Because I think, Jenny, when we spoke also, you were saying that when you came in and trained the players, they began to feel good. Like, as someone who is really into exercise and it's a big part of my life, I think it amazes me that the kids just don't do an hour of sport like as a
We need to
as a
campaign
standard.
for physical
We should.
literacy.
So it is still like, what, an hour or two a week, is it?
I don't have kids
No,
either.
okay,
so
fine, sorry.
yeah.
I'm just
But
looking at
it's-
you
yeah.
like you're the authority on a physical education. But that is really surprising to me, because I think exercise does make you feel really good. And that was what I wanted to just kind of open up to the floor now, kind of before we come and chat to Charlotte. Like, hearing from 3 women that have all practiced sport from an early age and gone on to have careers, how important is it for women and girls from all backgrounds to have access to sport from an early age? Like, does anyone have any thoughts or comments on that, or any experiences that they'd like to share? No pressure, but I just don't want it to feel like we're kind of talking and no one else is allowed to talk. Oh yeah, there's a hand at the back, great.
Yeah, so I'm a secondary school teacher from near Coventry.
Oh, amazing.
And don't hate me. But so just in terms of the sport in school, I'm a science teacher, and sport is not the focus. So we are about 2/3 boys and 1/3 girls. The boys can be quite dominant, so it depends on the teacher whether or not the girls get to have a go at break, playing football, etc. Break times have been shortened down as well to, in theory, reduce behaviour issues, but what that has also meant is that it's reduced the amount of time that kids get to do physical activity. And there's very much a focus on maths, English, and then science, and then geography, history, and then everything else. So sport has very much fallen down the sort of curriculum, so to speak. That said, the school that I'm in, we've got some pretty brilliant sports people in there. All boys. I don't have any girls. Well, no, we've got one. We've got a year 7 netballer now who is nearly 6 foot. He's incredible. And we've got a lad who plays in the academy here as well. And those kids do brilliantly well when they're out and about, but not so much academically. So it's kind of, it almost feels like it's become polar. Like you're one or the other. Make your choice, and if you're going to choose sport, then your academics is just going to fall down. It kind of feels a bit like that. I don't think we've got any sports people who are also excelling academically, and all of the sport that they're doing in order to excel, they're doing outside of school.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that with us. That's really interesting. It's almost as if you've got to be one thing or another, when actually I think being sporty and like a kind of an athlete can just inform your other work, right? Because you feel good about yourself and you're disciplined and all of those things. So, yeah, I don't know what the solution to that is. It sounds a bit like the arts, which are also being cut. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to? Yeah, we've got, thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm a local councillor on Merton Council, Liberal Democrat. So it's run by a Labour administration. One of the things we've been pressing them on for some time now is better changing facilities for women and girls in the borough, because we're trying to be borough of sport. But a lot of girls in particular are put off going to their local recreation ground and playing because there aren't sufficient toilet and changing facilities for them. And it means that there's a barrier there, and we're trying to remove that barrier. So anything anybody can do here to write into your local councillor or the council, there's a cabinet member called Caroline Cooper-Marbella, write into her and say, could we have more changing facilities and toilets for women and girls so that they can take a more active role, and it would help us to move towards being a borough of sport. Thank you.
Thank you. So when you say the recreation kind of clubs, they council-run clubs in the borough that you're...
Yes, I'm thinking of the green spaces. So for football, we have Little League, obviously, and other recreation grounds. I represent Wimbledon Park, and we have the Great Field where there's lots of football training in the morning, Saturday mornings. But there aren't the facilities.
It's
there.
astounding to me, yeah. So like that's how far back the kind of gender thing goes, that it just seems crazy to me that in 2025 there wouldn't be equal facilities changing wise in these kind of public spaces for women and girls. And it's really kind of re-emphasising to me that although we have made a lot of progress on a basic level, there is still a really long way to go. So yeah.
To be honest, it wouldn't take a huge amount of investment to create more safe spaces, changing rooms, etc., for women and girls, and then we could encourage more activity. Obviously, schools are fine; they have their own facilities, but you want girls in particular to be able to carry on doing sports beyond the school.
And out of school, especially just hearing about, maybe this...
Weekends and after school, that, there could be a lot more done, really.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'd just like to bring Charlotte in now, who, as I said before, is the COO of World Rugby, which is the governing body of rugby union. And I was very, very impressed, as you know, when I was first talking to you, because it sounds amazing. How did you get into that role?
Unlike my friends here, I think it's fair to say those who know me well in the room will attest that I spend a lot of time with men and women who are, like Tammy, Jenny and Sophie, incredibly esteemed sports people. It's fair to say I am not. However, I'm really, really good at queuing for beer. And I'm really, really, really good about complaining about queues for beer. And I think it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and I tell this story a lot, but actually the people who were in the conversation with me aren't normally in the room. They are tonight for the first time. And I think we were at the Oval, and I was chatting, I think it was with you, Rob, and my husband Pete, who's here, having a good old moan about the queues and the beer service at the Oval, something that we never do here at Ploughling. And I think, Rob, you said to me, well, you're a management consultant, you look after processes, why don't you go and see if you can volunteer and do something about it? I sort of laughed at him. But took it away, and it turned out that about 4 days later, Surrey were advertising for general council members. That's their sort of like their Don's Trust, their body, and lots of you here will be Surrey members, I'm sure, and will know about that well. And I went along and I met Richard Thompson, who was at the time the chair of Surrey County Cricket Club, is now the chair of the England and Wales Cricket Board, and Richard Gould, son of Bobby, who was at the time the chief executive at Surrey and now is the chief executive of the England and Wales Cricket Board. Meritocracy in sport, everybody. And they both said to me, so pleased to have you volunteer. I was a management consultant, as I say. We really want your skill set. You will never, ever, ever win an election to get voted on to the General Council of Surrey County Cricket Club. You're not known by the members. The same people go round and round. We never get new blood in. And we don't really have very many women. So I ended up being, by sheer luck, co-opted by Richard Thompson. The first time he ever played that card as chairman, joined the General Committee, and after a year, he asked me to join the board of Surrey. And I was the first female non-executive director of Surrey County Cricket Club. It took them 174 years to have a woman on the board.
Oh my goodness.
So And then, I mean, going back to my sort of rather sarcastic comment, I'm afraid, about meritocracy in sport, I wish I could say that there was a global, worldwide search to find the COO of World Rugby, and it was an open process for all. But I, like so many people in sports administration, I was nominated actually by Richard Thompson to go along to the interview to be COO of World Rugby. I was absolutely convinced, and my husband, as I say, is in the room and he will attest to this, that I was the diversity candidate. That somebody had said to Elevate, the headhunters, you need to have at least one woman on this shortlist. And the headhunter knew me, and Richard had suggested I might be a good person, so along I went. And my husband said to me, well, look, you should go for the interview anyway. You never know. You've got the skills. You know you can do the job. And Sir Bill Beaumont was going to be doing the interviews. And I grew up like lots of you in the era of Question of Sport. Bill and I share a birthday. And I thought, right, well, I'll go along because amazing. I get to meet the legend, and he is an incredible. They say never meet your heroes. Bill is an exception to this. He's a wonderful man. Go along and take the interview. And Pete said to me, look, if you think the interview's either going really brilliantly or it's going really, really badly, at the point that everybody gets to in an interview where the panel say to you, have you got any questions? Just turn to Bill and ask him what he thinks about the new format of Question of Sport. Now, obviously, as I'm sitting here as World Rugby COO, the interview was going very well, and I asked Bill that question, and 45 minutes later, he stopped talking. Didn't ask me any further questions, and I got through that round. So through lots of luck, lots of knowing fantastic people, lots of allyship, and I think I've just explained that when I'm having a bad day, I can blame my friend Rob.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that with us. So it's incredible that a woman such as yourself has ended up in that role, but kind of you've sort of alluded to it yourself just now, so I hope you don't mind me saying this, but it's still a very much a closed door. It's not just like not anyone, but a woman, I don't know, from a different background, but who did have appropriate skills and education and experience would even be able to get in the door for that job or be seen for it, because it's a very closed world, right, is what you're saying?
It can be, definitely. Yeah. It really can. And Tammy's in a really good position to comment on this as well, because she works, as he was saying, with Women's Sports Trust, runs that, and your research, I think, shows time and time again that these opportunities could be so much better for women. It's a huge problem. I frequently get pointed, not least by the headhunter who replaced me at World Rugby, as a brilliant example of somebody who comes as a diversity example, somebody who came out, in my case, out of financial services into sport. But I am obviously white. I am private school educated. I am from the south of England. And I come from a family who was very much involved in sport, and as a family, this hallowed ground and the Oval are where we spend the majority of our leisure time. So I don't think I'm the best example of a diversity candidate, but it's something we really need to work hard on. We look very hard now at World Rugby at our statistics. I'm not ashamed to say we do aim for positive discrimination where we can, in not just in terms of sex discrimination, but also in terms of bringing more ethnic minorities into the sport. We, across all sports, talk a lot about growth, and in rugby union, it's not a secret. You'll pick up any paper, particularly in this country, to see the financial difficulties we have in rugby. We need more people to come through the game, and we're not going to do that if everybody's speaking with an accent like mine and wearing red trousers and drinking Guinness.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. I really appreciate you sharing all of that. Like, I think we discussed in the chat that we had before tonight about kind of the diversity within your workforce and women of colour, and I think it is really important for us to all be able to kind of own our own privilege. So, like, I'm mixed heritage. My mum's from India. She was an immigrant. My dad is white, Scottish. So I have faced discrimination, but I know that I also have privilege because I've got lighter skin than other people. So I think it is really important to kind of acknowledge and talk about these things. And as you've sort of said, like, we're sort of here with 4 inspirational women leaders from sport who are all white, because I think that there aren't that many women of colour in these positions. So a question I wanted to just ask all of you, and also maybe open up to the floor, was like, what do you think can be done so that maybe in 10 years' time we are seeing more women of colour in leadership positions, or playing elite sport at the kinds of levels that you all are and have? Do you have any thoughts? I'm not asking for you to like fix things, by the way. I'm just like wondering if you have any thoughts.
It's a really important question, and what's good is it's being asked lots of times. For a long time, it wasn't even asked. Nobody's figured it out, but I think there's a general consensus that we really need to. You know, when I founded the Women's Sport Trust back in 2012, most of the rooms you went into were full of men, and now they're not. But there's loads of women everywhere. But if as we're changing the landscape of sport, we just make it into white women from London, it's not from a certain class. It's just not going to work. I think a lot of the initiatives and things that go out there also tend to focus on entry-level stuff and mentoring activity, which is so important. But I think we need to get much more sophisticated at how we're monitoring the data and things, looking at promotion practices, for instance, stopping talking just about mentoring and talking about sponsorship, to not only get more women into the industry, but actually into senior posts. There's blockers all the way through that we need to unpick, and I don't think anybody's got it figured out, but a lot of people are asking those questions.
That's really interesting what you've said there. Like, my background is in arts and theatre, and I think it's a very similar landscape, the kind of endless development opportunities, but where do they actually lead to? Like, what is the actual, you know, the tangible result?
You can get into an entry-level job,
yes.
but you can't be chief exec.
Exactly, yeah.
Because there's this glass. Yeah.
But while we sort of got onto that, maybe you could just tell us a bit more, Tammy, about the Women's Trust that you founded.
Yes, so as I said before, I was doing martial arts, and it was from a young age, it was all I wanted to do. I had this dream that I would be a master in the art, and I would have my own school, etc. And then life continues and so forth. And I got to a particular age, I think early 30s or something like that, and I was doing it part-time, and I thought, if I don't just try and do it full-time, I would get to really old, like in my 50s, and I would regret it. So I gave up the job. I started doing it full-time, and I had a full-time martial arts academy in central London, minding my own business, and I just knew I was weird. I knew that wasn't something that a woman kind of did, but I just accepted it because it was my, single-minded focus. Then London 2012 hit, and I saw female athletes for the first time. I saw women's sport for the first time, and it was a magical, magical time, and I felt different about myself. It was probably the first time in my life that I didn't feel weird, and I felt accepted as... accepted for everybody was accepted. And then 2012, the Olympics, the Paralympics was ending, and I thought, I can't lose this feeling. I have to hold on to this feeling and that realization that I hadn't seen women's sport before. I hadn't seen female athletes. And then once you realize that it doesn't exist in sort of the mainstream media and so forth, it's like, well, I've got to do something. I can't not do something. So it's sort of, I know, I'll set up a charity. What the hell? What the hell? But I saw a few YouTube videos to tell you how to do these things. That's serious. YouTube and Google, they're fantastic. How do you write a board paper? Oh, Google. So we originally started as a grant-giving body wanting to help athletes who were struggling financially, and I thought, I don't have a lot of money, but I got a tenner and I could get 9 other people. We've got 100 quid, we can give it to that female athlete. She could get to training. But very quickly we realised that 100 quid was never going to change anything, so we pivoted. And we focus on the elite level, decision-making level, because also at that time, the only place that it was acceptable really to talk about women's sport was at grassroots and participation level. Talking about leadership, decision-making, visibility, elite wasn't where women were allowed to be. So we focus on raising visibility and looking at commercial viability of women's sport. We're trying to, of women's professional sport, we're trying to commercialise and push the industry forward, but with a conscience, because we're a charity. So we do all sorts of things with elite athletes, a lot around in the data space at the moment, trying to prove the commercial case for women's sport to get more investment in, to get more visibility, etc.
Amazing. Thank you, Tammy. That sounds like fantastic work that you're doing. I wanted to come back to you, Sophie, because you are also involved in a charity which aims to open up access to rowing.
Yep.
So maybe you could tell us a bit about that and the work that they do.
Yeah, sure. And I think, I guess to your earlier question, this is sort of immediately where my mind went to. So rowing is obviously not a very diverse sport, I think.
And obviously, sorry to cut you, but diversity is everything, right?
Yeah.
It's socioeconomic background.
Yeah.
It's not specifically about race at all. It's a wide spectrum of...
Yeah, completely. And I think LYR, the charity that I'm involved in, essentially looks to, I suppose, open or break down the barriers to entry and get people exposed to the sport who, wouldn't necessarily come across it. So, from the location that we base our programs through, and I guess just trying to really kind of break down the kind of cost involved, I guess, as well, because rowing's not a cheap sport to do, and I think that's something that I definitely, having got so much out of the sport myself, felt very passionately about trying to be involved in something that looks to readdress that balance, really.
And do you find that people from different backgrounds, maybe they're growing up in very urban environments, they go to comprehensives, like rowing is not something that's on their radar, but when they have the chance to do it, do you find that people really enjoy it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those sports that quite easily hooks people in. So I mean, not to say that everyone loves it, but I think it's that just trying it, kind of getting exposed to it. It's also all the different lessons that it kind of teaches you as well. It's not just the sort of physical side, it's the discipline, it's the perseverance, and so all of those kind of life skills, actually you can get so much from it that is not just the kind of physical activity side, which is obviously a massive contributor as well, and I'd also add to that the kind of mental piece as well, and that kind of ability to just have an outlet and kind of get that wellness side to the exercise as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on the wellness and exercise. I'd like to bring it back to AFC Wimbledon for a minute now and where we are, and to the wonderful Jenny. You're quite legendary for many reasons, but one of them is because you were a key part, I would say, this is the opinion I've formed of you since I've known you, of Wimbledon's FA Cup winning side, because you joined the club in the 87 season, is that right? 86, yeah. In the 87 season. I was doing my research about Wimbledon. Obviously, they'd really climbed up the leagues, and they were sort of doing okay, weren't they? But they, you joined the club in 87, and then the very next season, they went on an amazing FA Cup run. No replays, no penalty shootouts, won all the games in the run, and then they beat Liverpool 1-0 in the final. So, yeah, I mean, I'd just love to hear a bit more from you, some of the things that you told me when we spoke before, of the things that you did with the players and, that season. It would be great to hear, because I suppose nobody started that season thinking, we might win the FA Cup this season.
Oh, they wanted to win everything.
Okay, yeah.
I'd love to see them win the league, actually. But that year, I think their hearts were set on a cup.
Oh, they were, right. So it was really there in there.
Oh, yeah, they all believed in it. You've got to believe in something.
You have.
When you work with a team, you've got to give them targets, you've got to give them a goal, And And they were saying, you know, we stand a good chance like everybody else, you know. And when I started introducing sort of the ladder work and the cone work and the different skills that I took in there, they all thought it's a load of rubbish, you know, not doing this, you know, I'm not jumping over a 2-foot hurdle. They did it. They did it. Got on every day. We did it twice, maybe 3 times a week. I took them into Richmond Park and introduced a 6-mile run, and that killed them. Right? But they did it. And as the weeks went on, they started to come in when I used to go into the youth team room to make sure that they were ready to go out and train as well. Like people like Roger Joseph and Terry Phelan come in and say, you know this work you're doing, you know, would it help if we did extra more? You know, to come and see you at the track or something. I said, give it a try. Come down and give it a try.
Because you were still working as an athletics coach, because you were freelance, so
Yeah.
you were doing the stuff here with the football, but you were still coaching your athletes at the track.
On a Monday and Wednesday night, I had 30-odd kids from different clubs all over London, from West Ham, Tottenham, used to come down with their parents. Steve Sidwell was up at Arsenal, and he was told to come down and train with me as well. So I've had kids from sort of every club around, and they came down. Wisey came down, Philo came down. I'm not training with them. I said, you're no different for them. I said, you know, you might be a pro player, but we all start somewhere. So I got them joining in. I said, no, come on, the kids will love it. It'd be, you know, it's a boost for them. So they started joining in. Oh, yeah, we'll come down again and again and again. And the group bigger. So I had to do 2 sessions. So I had the youth team 1 minute, and then I had the senior pros the next, right? And the more I did it, the more people came. So then there was Robbie Earl, Warren Barton, all that lot started coming in, you know. But they started to then realise that it wasn't just about doing the athletic side, it's also about nutrition and S&C. Well, we do our own weights. I said, yeah, but are you doing it properly? Are you doing the right
Strength
things?
and conditioning, that is.
Yeah,
S&C,
strength and condition, yeah. You know, nutrition, are you looking at that side of it? Well, no, you know, we go get hamburger and chips or fry up in the morning.
Were they really just eating anything pretty much back then, footballers? They weren't thinking, oh, I'm
No.
going to... No protein shakes.
No, if you've got a nutritionist come in, they sit there going, yeah, we do that. No, they didn't.
They didn't put the connection between the nutrition and the training and playing football.
No,
They were
no.
like, we're footballers, we play football.
Yeah, and we don't do all this stuff, Eventually, 6 months down the line, they got so used to doing it, they came back for more and more and more.
Because they felt good, that's what you said to
They
me,
were
didn't you? That
feeling
they
good about
started to
themselves,
feel
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were feeling really good about themselves. Not only that, they started to look after their bodies as well. You know, so when they went home, they were saying to their wife, I can't eat that, that's too much fat in that. I've got to have a salad and something else with the salad. So salad and chicken, salad and turkey, you know. Jen says we've got to have that. Jen didn't say anything. Jen's just giving you some advice on what to do. And so then it increased, the group got bigger. And then during the winter months, I used to go to Kingston track, and Don Howe and Bobby used to come down. I used to do work down there, and I used to go to Tooting running track up there as well and do work up there with them. But it was seeing the change in them, their attitude towards training, and they were feeling fitter, they were feeling better. They weren't looking tired when they came in. They were really rising to the occasion and saying, yeah, we got this today, we're really looking forward to it. And then I introduced them to pool work. We can't swim. I said, you'll swim by the time you finish, I'll tell you. So I started doing non-weight bearing stuff. So we were doing like drills through the water, and I started introducing a little bit of circuit work. So you swim a length, you climb out, you do 20 press-ups, 1 in, you swim back another 20. So you do about 50 and all, and then we change it to something else. And I'm going, this is killing us. I said, yeah, but you're going to feel 10 times better when you finish. You know, and as the weeks went on, they wanted more and more of it. And it was brilliant. I had some great times with them. They gave me grief. I gave them grief back, right? But I had some fantastic times with those boys.
And the cup run itself, as it went on, and they're obviously feeling really together as a group, like feeling good about themselves from all the training, and finished 7th in the league that year, I think, as well, which is really impressive considering they weren't that long out of the much lower leagues.
No.
What was it like when you started to get closer to the final and the belief ramped up, and being there at Wembley. What was that like?
You have to keep building their confidence up and believe in themselves that they can do it, they are capable of doing it. Just because everyone criticised them because they were Wimbledon,
The crazy gang.
yeah, prove them wrong. Go out and prove people wrong. You know, you're good enough. You're good enough to be there. You're capable of beating them. Everyone's beatable. Let's do it. Let's go out and do it. Let's go and show them what you're all about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's right.
That feels like a really natural point to take a quick comfort break. So we'll just have a little 10-minute break and come back. Thanks so much so far, everyone. Hi everyone. Oh yeah, there we go. I hope everyone had a nice little break. I'm going to dive straight back in with Charlotte, if that's okay. Once I find my place. Oh, my iPhone's just having a little moment there. Yeah, you mentioned earlier about Surrey County Cricket Club and your role there. So I was just keen to hear a bit more about that once you, because what was your role there again, sorry?
So I was a non-executive director, so I sat on the board.
On the board. So what does that actually mean? Like, what did you do on the day-to-day? And it was a voluntary position,
Voluntary
right?
position, month to month as opposed to day-to-day. Anybody who, like me, works with a board of directors closely knows you don't want your NEDs in more than month to month, certainly not day-to-day. Really an opportunity, firstly, to bring my professional background in. So as a management consultant, I'm a governance and risk specialist, so to try and help challenge and work with the executive to make sure that the club was being run as brilliantly as it can, and that was really easy because anybody who knows Surrey will know that it is a really smart outfit. It's a brilliantly run club, hence being so economically viable in a time where not all sport is, and certainly not all cricket is. But also, as I mentioned, I was the only woman, and I think other panel members will also have a view on this, I'm sure. But one of the things that you have to almost check yourself when you're the only woman in these fora, which for lots of us is a frequent occurrence, not to be the only person who's advocating for the women's game. My roles have always been about the sports as a whole. I mean, my most, just as an aside, my most frequently asked question when I meet people and they ask what I do for a living is, for women's rugby. Well, no, I'm the COO of the International Federation for all of rugby. They let us work on the men's game now as well. It's fab. But I cannot tell you how much I get asked.
I can imagine. It is an assumption, right, that like you must be focused on women's sport, women, and
right. I mean, that's right up there with my frequent cricket question. My husband Peter and I are very lucky, thanks to my wonderful in-laws, who lots of you know, Eric and Eileen, to be able to get a trip overseas to watch Test cricket occasionally. And Pete and I always have a little bet about how quickly I will be told, "Oh, how lovely that you come with your husband to watch the cricket. When are you going to do some shopping or sunbathe?" I normally give it about 2 sessions, and then at some point turn to the person who's sitting next to me who's asked me that, and just sort of start commenting about what I do for a living and what I did for Surrey. Anyway, all an aside. But my other role at Surrey, unfortunately, was at that point, and it's very different now. I mean, there's almost a decade's gone by, was to advocate for the women's game. I mean, Jill was talking about facilities and the recreational sport, and that is a huge problem. And I've got two girls who play a lot of sport, and changing rooms is an issue. Sadly, it's also an issue in elite sport as well. Certainly in cricket, and you would not believe the facilities that female cricketers playing at the very top of the game in this country didn't have. I mean, it's not even that they had bad facilities; they're changing in cars. So at this point, you're talking about people like Nat Siver-Brunt, who the cricket fans will know is absolutely one of the superstars in the England setup, who was not just changing in a car, was given one shirt. So you're going out to bat on a hot summer's day, and you come off at lunch, and you can't change your shirt. And this is for one of the richest counties.
And how many shirts would the men get? They just get
countless,
unlimited,
as many as they
shirt.
would like,
yeah.
as many as they. But and that comes down to people just not thinking,
right?
Commercial sponsorship not being nearly. And again, something Tammy is much more well versed on than I am. But we were talking before the session that there is now a huge myth around investment in women's sport. The Lionesses has done an absolutely incredible job in this country about bringing women's sport into the forefront. I'm hoping the Red Roses, from a rugby union perspective, will do the same in our World Cup this year. Tickets on sale now, everybody. But the money isn't there in the way people perceive, and we know that here at Wimbledon as well with our wonderful women's team. We'd love to see more investment. So you absolutely have to be the person, unfortunately, who keeps reminding people. And as I say, things are much different at Surrey now, but in those early days, that was something that I was taking on. So I would go into the boardroom and talk about toilets and changing shirts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point to bring Tammy back in, because you mentioned earlier about the commercialisation of women's sport and how that is really important. But was I getting the sense that you're kind of saying it needs to be done in the right way, in like, is an ethical way? Is that the right turn of phrase? Or maybe you could just tell us a bit more about that landscape.
I guess what I meant by that is we're in a really important point in the evolution of women's sport at the moment, and that sort of with a conscience is we have to make sure that what we're doing is done in an inclusive way, it's etc. But the whole the commercialisation thing. So back in I think it was 2019 or whatever, I wanted to do a bit of research around role models to look at because there was so much talk around elite role models and having elite role models on TV and things doesn't make a difference to women. It does to men, but it doesn't to women. And I wanted to do some research that pointed to the fact that, or looked at the impact of elite role models and what behaviour that sort of made as a result. So we put out this research, and what came back was, it didn't answer that question at all, but what came back was there is no data here. We can't even look at the question because the data isn't there. So it's sort of, and then that kind of realisation of actually this is a massive area that needs to shift around visibility, around looking at actually what's happening in the space, because visibility drives engagement into sport, it drives interest and so forth. So we started, we didn't have a lot of money, but we got a lot of pro bono stuff and whatever, and we started pulling together data around visibility, broadcast numbers, audience figures, all that sort of stuff. And at that time, nobody was talking about it at all. And we thought we needed to use data to actually start to change the conversations that we're having around women's sport, to use that data in order to have a way of pulling decision makers together. So BBC, Sky Sports, DAZN, the FA, EC, but everybody, Meta, all the digital platforms and so forth, use that as a way to convene behind closed doors, to talk about blockers, etc. And then also start to push that data out into the ecosystem as a way of democratizing data and insight, because it was very much only if you had enough money could you afford this sort of knowledge. So we've been doing this research and pushing it out on a quarterly basis now for almost 4 years, and it has changed the landscape, and it has given it's changed FA strategy, it's changed strategy at the RFU, it's impacted how the BBC are working, etc. It's given agencies data that they can start selling to brands, because it's evidence that there is an actual audience for women's sport. However, the money still isn't pouring in, and there's a massive misconception because of figures that go out saying that it's going to be worth, women's sport is going to be worth $1 billion by 2030, 2035, whatever. But people still don't know how to actually make that happen. So in December, I wanted to unpick that more. And we did some groundbreaking research that looked at the decision-making process around sponsorship and activation in women's sport to try and understand where the blockers are, to sort of educate the industry, and this is how you sort of deal with it. And there's loads in there around women's sport, women's football is brilliant. The return on investment that sponsors get is phenomenal, but we still don't totally understand how to articulate what it can offer to a sponsor. There's a lot to be done around understanding the real value and how to translate that, how to communicate that in a way that people will then invest more. And there's still a lot that's around visibility that's holding things. But if things aren't visible, and not just on a platform, but how it's, the prominence of it on a platform, how it's positioned, the tone that's put out with it, how it's signposted by other places, if that isn't happening around it, how can you sell it? So a lot of what we're doing is just trying to unearth where the blockers are, and we also put it away. There are systemic issues, reasons why this is happening, and we want to show people missed opportunity and say, look what you could get, look at the opportunity there if you just did this. And that's really kind of how we've started to guide the industry a little bit.
Yeah, just to break that down a bit, because I don't come from a data background at all.
Me neither.
So I just want to make sure I'm
YouTube videos are brilliant.
Tammy's top tip for the day, Google and YouTube. So when you say data and the research, you're collecting data from people. That's what you're doing, so that you can then, that can be used as evidence.
Barb, so how many people are watching on, so broadcast data. So when you now read the newspaper and it says that X million were tuned in to see AFC Wimbledon women win that last match, then that's the sort of data. It's that,
and
those
that
hard
didn't
figures.
exist before.
It existed, but no one was looking at
No
it.
one
No
was
one was
using
reporting
it,
at
right.
it. No, it wasn't collated in any way that was available for journalists, or and it wasn't really debated between broadcasters, etc. So it's
And now it's being used to drive FA strategy with regards to women's football. Is that
all sorts of things.
Yeah,
well,
that's amazing.
I would assume you guys are using our data, yeah?
We very much use your data. Yeah, absolutely. It drives strategy, and we talk about broadcast numbers on an hourly basis in a World Cup year, because we are not just selling into the broadcast market here in the UK, we're selling into the broadcast market globally, and also run our own TV streaming channel. So this is the stuff, and this is eyeballs bring sponsors. It gets that money in. We know that people want to watch women's sport. It doesn't help, as Tammy said, when some of the projections are so lofty that everybody assumes that the money's there. And the other thing that we really need to be able to change is hearts and minds on boards of directors. And this is not a football or a rugby or a cricket specific thing. I think it's women's sport everywhere, around being brave enough to invest and to know that not all of your fans, if you take a football club, not all of your fans are going to be thrilled if you're putting more money into the women's game because they see it being taken away from the men's game. I kind of say tough. And we need to do that.
So there is a lot of that, because Coventry City, we don't have a women's team. There's Coventry United, but they're completely separate. We have the men's first team and, the youth team. But at clubs where they do, like here, for example, I'm not saying that it's like that here, but generalising, you think there is still a bit of that going on at clubs, that people
Definitely.
don't want money going into the women's team
Definitely.
because they see it as being, we don't have enough now for the men's team.
Yeah, absolutely. There's people in this room who are much better versed in what goes on here at Wimbledon, but I hear it. I hear it here. I hear it when I talk to people who support other clubs. Nobody's brave enough to come to me and say, I think that no money should go into the women's team because we should be investing it all into the men's team. But you do hear people talk like that, and I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's an absolute tragedy that in 2025 we are having to see that it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we're not seeing investment across a club as being about what the club stands for, who the club is, and the community the club wants to be. And
your potential growth will come from the women's side.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a massive opportunity, and also you look at Gen Z or whatever, the young lot coming through. Are very much interested in the women's game and equality, etc. So your point about it being short-sighted, absolutely.
And Tammy, you are actually the director of AFC Wimbledon Women.
I am one of directors,
One of the
Tanya
directors.
and David back there.
And it's quite a funny story as to how that came into being, because you not a lifelong football fan. Is it fair to say that you're not? You
No,
weren't.
I mean I grew up in America. We didn't
Yeah.
watch football. It was baseball,
So what
and that was fairly
happened?
dull.
That kind of.
So I don't follow men's football. I run a women's sport charity, so I enjoy women's sport in general. I, through the charity, so a very good friend of mine, Kelly Simmons, used to work at, used to be one of the FA directors, so she sort of was always on at me about football. But it was 2019, the Women's World Cup was on, and at the same time, some bloody people, they knocked my gym down and they built a stadium. You know, there was a great squash club I used to go to, had this gym at the bottom, and they knocked it down. And I thought, can I swear? I thought, darn. And the World Cup was on, and I thought, I know, I'm going to write them a letter. So I found
An actual letter, not even an email.
No, it was
an email.
It was a LinkedIn. Well, it was an emaily kind of thing. I found Joe on what's Joe's last name? Palmer. Joe Palmer on LinkedIn, and I sent him a LinkedIn sort of lettery thing, not expecting any sort of return, but he replied back to me. And he said, "Come in."
Because what did you say in the message?
Well, I said, "You're knocking my gym down. What are you doing for women's football?" And he said, "Come in and talk to me, and I'll also invite my friend David along, who is the chair of the women's side." And sat down, had a brilliant talk, and David's very convincing. And he said, "Well, help us do something." So, well, okay, I'll get my YouTube video out. And he said, sort of help us write a strategy. Now, I love learning, because I knew nothing about Wimbledon or anything at all, but took the challenge. And the way sort of approached that was David told me who I needed to talk to. So I went out and I interviewed, a dozen, maybe more, sort of really important people inside of the women's game, and they taught me so much around what was happening and the passion for the game. And I was so amazed by what volunteers were giving so much. And so absolutely fascinating, really enjoyable little project that I did. So gave this back to David. Then we had COVID, etc. And after COVID, he came to me again and said that they thought we were expanding the board and would I consider applying. And strangely, they let me on. So which is honestly, it's such a privilege to be part of and to be part of this club. And it is one of the most welcoming environments. And I feel sort of each time, I haven't been to any of the men's games, but every time I turn up at the women's game, I just feel, you feel welcome and part of it, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And and I'm on a daily basis astonished by what the club on the budget that we've got with the volunteers that we've got are able to do. And look at us in Tier 3. I mean, wow.
I love that. Thank you so much. I said at the beginning that all four of our amazing panellists have a connection to AFC Wimbledon. So I just want to hear a little bit from Charlotte about how did you become a Wimbledon fan?
Well, I think people have probably guessed from my surname how I became a Wimbledon fan. I have the great privilege of working with Sophie's wife, Annie, and who sits on the board of directors for World Cup 2025, played in England, tickets on sale now. Annie and I were at dinner last week, and one of my team said, "Oh, so you're an AFC Wimbledon fan too?" And Annie turned to my colleague and said, "I'm a Wimbledon fan by marriage." Which coined a phrase that I am now going to use. But that for me now means almost 21 years of being involved in this wonderful club. And as you know, I'm Eric's daughter-in-law, so it is very much a full family passion. We come here as regularly as we can, certainly most men's games, as many the women's games as we can. Unfortunately, Sundays clash with children's sport, another issue. and you know, I get to spend my Saturday afternoons with wonderful people in this room and my Wimbledon family, multi-generational, not just within my family. My friend Tara's here. You know, we sit with her husband, boys, and her mum and dad on you know, most Saturday afternoons, and we do something really special here. And it's, you know, I think until we bring people to the club, we show them what happens, how people are with one another. It's really hard to explain, but everybody in this room knows exactly what I'm talking about. The magic of Wimbledon, the support for each other, the community we have, and that's the really important stuff, which is lucky at the moment given how the football's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Like, I really love that we've got kind of two women who grew up going to Wimbledon, been fans since childhood. And we've got Tammy, who, through the gym being knocked down, has ended up in her story and like predominantly a fan of the women's team. And Charlotte, kind of through meeting her partner 20 years ago. And I think that's the great thing about fandom and clubs that are truly welcoming, because I do think that there has been some sort of gatekeeping in the past about how long have you supported a club, like did your grandparents support a club? And I think it's really important to celebrate, you know, generational fandom, but encouraging people that, you know, if you're 35, you've never been to a football game, you can still go to your local club and be welcomed. So it's really positive and encouraging to hear that is what's happening here at Wimbledon. I just wanted to bring Sophie back in now, because not content with winning a gold medal, you're now a successful lawyer and you actually worked at the Football Association. I don't think that's your current position.
Yeah, not anymore. I think I left in 2019, so obviously stuff's moved on, and interesting to hear these guys kind of speak about it now. But whilst I was there, I got the opportunity to do a lot on the women's side, so sponsorship, kind of broadcasting, and also was a bit involved in the GB team that went to Tokyo and the kind of selection around that. So yeah, I guess got to see sort of a glimmer into the commercial side through that, which whilst obviously there's a long way to go, was also quite far removed from the rowing world as well, I think, in terms of football being kind of at the forefront of the commercial side.
And just on a practical level, like, how was it going from being an elite athlete, training, I mean, that was your total life, right? Like, every minute of every day, to having a job. I guess you still went to the gym loads because you just...
Yeah, I mean, I was still sitting down, obviously. That was the kind of consistent theme. But apart from that, there wasn't that much else that was parallels. I guess... Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I kind of was very sure that when I stopped, I wanted to do something else, and I kind of didn't want to be talking about something I did when I was 27 for the rest of my life. And again, not that there's anything kind of wrong with that, but I wanted a different focus. And I think there's lots that's sort of talked about in terms of when you finish being a professional athlete, it's quite a difficult transition. And I think the way I coped with that was trying to throw myself into something else, and at the time I thought law was a good idea. I question that every day now, but jokes aside, it kind of was, there was a process that I would go through that I could train in, and there was something that I could do that didn't necessarily mean I had to do that for the rest of my career, but could, potentially lead to other things, and it definitely has kind of brought me lots of experiences that I wouldn't have necessarily seen at the outset. But yeah, I think it was that thing to sort of that challenge of doing something new, using my brain, which I didn't have to use that hard in rowing, and a different kind of challenge that was definitely appealing when I was finishing my career.
And did you miss the physical training?
Yeah, definitely. I think I miss, every time I watch a race, I miss that feeling of competing and being at the top of your game and kind of going out there and being able to showcase everything that you train for. When I then think about what you have to do to get there, and I still do have nightmares that I'm having to do like an ergo test and I've done no training. So I think I don't sort of miss that sort of intensity of it. And yeah, I guess what sort of exercise has meant to me now is actually more the mental side, and that kind of ability to switch off from whatever the other stresses are you have in your life, and that kind of break. So yeah, kind of still try and do things on a regular basis, but obviously much lower intensity and just more to sort of switch off from other stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sophie. I want to come back to Jenny now, if that's okay. I saw someone, I think, come and ask you to sign their book during the little break that we had, and I think it was a book, maybe it was David Witt, was his autobiography, or it was a biography, autobiography.
Yeah.
You obviously were his coach, so maybe you could just talk a bit about that, like how you met David, how you came to also coach him to gold. Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Met David when he was 8. Got him involved in London Youth Games. We were looking for an athlete for the borough. Didn't know where to look. Went to Tooting Bec. There was a little group of athletes there. Asked him if he'd like to represent Merton in the London Youth Games. Yeah. Stroppy little boy. Stroppy. Spoke to his mum and dad. Said, look, it's Sunday week. Can you get him up to Crystal Palace? Yeah, we get him there. He did the 100 metres. Well, I'd watched him on the line and looked, I thought, oh my God, this boy's talented. Head down, vroomps, straight down, finish, come first. And I said to his parents, does he do anything else? Yeah, he does basketball, but he likes wheelchair racing. We don't know where to take him. I said, well, I found him at Tooting Bec with a group. And they said, yeah, but the trainings, if it's raining, we don't turn up. If it's snowing, or if the guy don't fancy it, he won't do any coaching. I said, all right. So I said, I'll have a look around, see if I can maybe find someone for you. I actually found a guy, Chas Sadler, who worked in Kingston, and said, look, would you be interested in this lad? Well, David went to him, trained with him. David at 16 went to LA to the Olympics, came back, fell out of love with sport, didn't do anything. And then one day he watched Tony Gray-Thompson in the Olympics and decided he made a wrong move. Sat down and cried, said to his mum, I need to get back into the sport. And in 2002, David came back to me and asked me for help. So I said, what is it you want? What is it you want, and what is it you want from me? I fell out of love with the sport. He said, I now want to get back into the sport. I want to make Athens Olympics. And he said, I want to do London Marathon. So I said, oh, right, okay, that's not a lot, is it? So I said, all right. I said, turn up to the track on Monday. Don't be late. So he turned up. I said, 50 laps. He went, what? I said, 50 laps, off you go. I said, I'll be here, sitting here. I'll count them. 50 laps, finished. He said, can I go home now? I went, I said, I'll see you Wednesday. Turned up Wednesday. Did another 20 laps. Looked at me and he said, this is hard. I said, what do you want? I said, you want all this glory, Dave, you've got to work for it. Anyway, we worked together. He won London, his first marathon, and he went to Athens, got a silver and a bronze. Came back and I said, look, you and I need to sit and talk. I said, I work full time, and I said, I now got to juggle my training and my job with what you want. So we sat at Kingston and I said, right, okay, put it on the table. What is it you want? I've had a taste of glory. I want to win London again. I want more gold medals. I want world records. Basically, he wanted everything. So like an idiot, I sat there and said, I'll take you there. And I went home that night and said, oh, my God, what have I said? I couldn't sleep that night. And I woke up in the morning after about not even 2 hours sleep, and I thought, I can't let this guy down. I cannot let this boy down. So we got together, made a plan. I said, right, training's going to start in Richmond Park, marathon training in Richmond Park. So we were in Richmond Park every day doing mileage and that. And one evening I said to him, meet me in the evening in Richmond Park. I said, meet me at 6:30, but don't be late. 7 o'clock he turned up. So he said, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. So I said, I'm sorry you're late, I'm going home. So he said, well, I'm here now. I said, no, I'm going home. I said, 6:30, right, you're 7. So anyway, he said, can I come tomorrow? I said, yeah, don't be late. After that, he turned up dead on time. And the rest is history. You guys must know, right? He's achieved everything. Let me tell you, he's won 20 gold medals. That's World, European and Olympic. He's won 5 silver medals, and he's got about 3 bronze. 4 world records he held. He's won 8 London marathons. He's won 8 Great Norths. I think he might still hold the record for the half marathon in Portugal. He's achieved everything that he set out on that day. If you go on Wikipedia, I went on Wikipedia the other week and I was in tears because I didn't realise how much we had done together. I'm still coaching him to this day. I was hoping to retire, right?
That's what I want. Another thing I wanted to ask you. You're still coaching now, aren't you?
I'm still coaching now, yeah. I mean, after London, it's his legacy. He wanted to set up the academy to get more kids involved in sport.
The Archer Weir Academy that you have together.
that
Weir
keeps
Archer Academy,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So I sat down, I said, Dave, I said, you know, we've been together, we're like an old married couple now, right? We've been together over 20-odd years. In those 20-odd years, I can tell everyone in this room, and my family's in this room tonight, we have never had an argument or disagreement to any part of his training. He's turned up on time. I've travelled back and forwards to Europe with him because he hates flying. We've driven so many times to Portugal to warm weather training, had a fantastic time. We've driven to Switzerland and back again and driven up to Newcastle, and it took us longer to get to Newcastle than to get to Switzerland. He's had a fantastic career, and it's been an honour, absolute honour, being by his side all this time, and I'm still by his side, and I'm still coaching, and I'm still coaching him. He's now concentrating on marathons. Paris was his last Olympics. He wanted to do 7, and he did 7. We weren't too bothered about medal in that. I'll let you down now. But he's achieved everything he set out to achieve. And it's been an absolute honour being by his side all this time. And, you know, the academy's running well. We've got a young group of kids down there. They're fantastic. They're all coming through. They're all on sort of pathway programmes. Some are on the Olympic pathway programme for LA. Oh, by the way, you signed me up for LA as well. So I'm around to LA. But the academy we set up was to bring more children into the sport. It's an expensive sport. The chairs are really expensive. We got a great trustees board behind us. We were sponsored for 5 years by Tarmac, who we actually got our own unit, indoor unit, where we could take them inside and train. I'll tell you now a little story, and I think I told you the other day. When we first set up the academy, we were looking for money and everything, and we were going out doing stuff. I was lucky that a guy had a stall, a market stall, on a Saturday morning and Sunday morning, selling Nike. Not actual Nike gear, but you know what I mean. So when he did sell all the gear, he used to give it to us. So I used to put it in the boot of my car. And when Dave was training in Richmond Park, I'd be selling kit out the boot of my car to raise money so we could get the money together to get the gloves and everything for the kids in the academy. But honestly, when I look back on what we've done and achieved, it's been quite an amazing career for me.
You are an amazing woman, Jenny, for sure.
I just say one thing. I look at this club, and I learnt so much with this club. It's a family club, and one of our sayings we've got is one team, one home, one goal.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's really beautiful. One thing I just wanted to ask you about that you said you saw in David when you saw him do that first 100 metres, like, how does it feel as a coach when you see that spark in someone, like the kids that you're training now? How do they get access to the academy? Do you go around to different places, but when you see that in somebody, how does that make you feel as a coach?
Let me tell you something. I like to take the underdog. I like to take the person that you might not think is going to make it. And if I can change that around, I've done my job. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can spot, and you get these young kids come in, and they could be brilliant right up to the age of 14, 15, but when they start to develop, you see another change in them. We go into schools. We encourage the athletes to go in schools and talk about their disability, and also to talk about their careers and what they've done. We put on the taster days where we invite anyone can come in on a taster day and take part. We've done courses for the athletes in the club. Everyone in the club last year did their first aid course, so they're all qualified first aiders. We even get the parents involved in that as well. We got one little lad that does his magazine. He does a monthly magazine for the club. So everyone's involved in something. The parents are involved in sort of maintaining the chairs. Someone makes the tea. And then we've got, as I say, a committee that organise going to the race meetings and everything else. You know, but when you see talent in a kid, you know what you're looking for. You see, yeah. But I tend to treat them all the same.
Do you think that's important
Yeah.
to not to let on that you've seen that, because you don't want them to start thinking that because it's pressure or it's just not good for them?
You don't want to put pressure on anybody, really. You want them to be there to enjoy it, and you want them to stay there. You know, and you can say, okay, we know little Johnny's going to make it, so you know this one won't.
Mm-hmm.
But give them the same benefit.
Yeah.
Let them enjoy everything. You know, you can always do individual little bits now and again with the others, but I try and treat everyone the same, whether they're senior level or junior level.
Because it's like what Sophie was saying and what we touched on earlier. There's so many transferable skills from doing sport, isn't there? Just life skills like self-confidence, discipline.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's that, like you said, kind of treating everyone equally, because, you know, everyone's going to be able to take something from it. And I think, you know, having that kind of grounding in equality of treatment. And it also, like, whilst you probably can tell maybe with some who are sort of stand out, there might be someone who sort of, you know, develops in a different way and actually comes to it a bit slower, and actually through perseverance and being treated kind of in the same way would achieve more than maybe you think at the outset.
I always put myself out. If I feel there's someone that needs a little bit extra, I will put myself out and say, right, okay, I'm free on Friday night. If you can get your parents to bring you, because you have to rely on the parents, and I always say to the children, always appreciate what your parents do for you, because they're the ones that take you from school, home, have your tea, bring you to the track. Some of our parents come from Brighton, Worthing, Kent, Alpinson. We've got people that come as far as Norwich, you know, for training. But I always make sure that the kids thank the parents for what they do. Even at weekends, if they go to Stoke Mandeville for a meeting, sometimes it could be a 2-day meeting. And we help try and fund some of the hotel costs for the parents. So we've got a budget where we give them all £250, and that's their budget. So it could be towards gloves or anything for the chairs, or it could be towards a hotel room. And we've had, over the last 5 years, we've had a team going out to Switzerland, which we funded from the club.
That's incredible. And it is such a huge commitment for parents, isn't it? Like financial and in terms of time, if you're, whether it's football or racing or rowing or whatever it is. And I think that's another thing that plays into the development of people from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds, like socioeconomic or racial, because, you know, at that very young age when it can be pivotal, their parents are just not able, or just it's not been in the culture to dedicate so much time to kind of, like you say, if it's a 2-day meet, that's the entire weekend, really, isn't it?
It is when you think the parents are working as well during the day. And they, you know, when you think, we got parents that come up from Brighton and Worthing every Monday and Tuesday night, without fail, they're there at 6:30. And then it's a 2-hour journey back. I mean, so just before Christmas, I think they shut the M25. So parents had to do a diversion. So some of them weren't going home till about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But they were still there at the weekend. If I said there was training in Richmond Park, we start at 6:30, 7 o'clock in Richmond Park. Those parents were there. And I always say to the kids, thank the parents, because without the parents, you wouldn't be here.
That's great.
To me, it's important.
Definitely.
You know, yeah. And we support the parents as well. You know, sometimes they might be having a tough time with the kids. Some of them might be bullied at school. I get the senior athletes to mentor some of the younger kids. You know, they get talking to the senior athletes and take him off, go and have a chat to him. He's had a rough day. And we support the parents as well. Yeah. So all round the club itself, what I try to create is like what I felt at Wimbledon, it was a family-run, orientated club. So you don't sit in the stand and watch Little Johnny, you get involved, you know.
Yeah.
And it creates a lovely atmosphere, you know. I often stand back and look at it, and David said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, just having a look around and see what's going on.
And you must feel immensely proud when you do that, to feel that you yourself and David have created that, and that you're kind of facilitating the next generation of Paralympians. And
We do, yeah.
yeah, amazing. It's been so lovely chatting to you all. I do want to just give some time for people that might have questions from the floor. So, I'll just open it up. I think we'll probably get the mic back. Oh, I can see a hand straight away at the back. Do we have the roving... Oh, you have got the...
I got it,
Oh,
luckily.
sorry, I thought you had a question.
Oh, no, I still have a
You were
question.
telling me that you were the roving mic. Got it. So if anybody does have a question, please just raise your hand.
I do actually have a question
Oh,
as
I
well.
see.
So
Go.
I'll add the question in, and then I'll bring the mic round. So first of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much. It's absolutely incredible. I think we can all agree having you here. It's been incredible. And that includes you, Hannah, as well. 2 years in a row now, you've been a fantastic host for us, and we couldn't thank you enough for coming down. It really does mean a lot. My question was just around, it's so common, exactly what you've all been saying, to hear the comments such as, you must work in the women's side of football, or you must work in the women's game, or seeing the lack of resources or the lack of availability, or like we were even saying before about the changing rooms. And there is a lot of barriers still there, as we've been discussing. And often for young people, it's that anxiety, the judgment, the lack of that ability to see themselves climbing up a ladder. And I suppose this has a question of two parts. So recently, the Army had an anonymous forum that they opened up to all their service women. And in the report, it found that 13% had had an upsetting experience, but only 3% had reported this. And I think that is a barrier of lack of wanting to report, or being called out, or seeing us, they're kind of unable to feel safe if they stand up or speak out, and feeling like it will come back on them. So I guess, do you think that an anonymous forum could be something in our industry that we could benefit from, and it could help young people feel that safety? And the second question was, Jenny, you mentioned obviously some fantastic male relations that you've had in sports that were just so vital for you and your career, but also for their career. And it was just to ask, really, with the relevance of male allies, white ribbon, and the importance of women stepping up in these games and these positions, how important is it for males to look into that mentorship and really influence or elevate young women as well as the young men that they're pushing through mentor-wise?
Do you want me to take the first question? Because I look after an HR team, so probably close to that. So, look, anonymous forums are brilliant if it gets us talking. Where anonymous forums really fall down is being able to take action. And there is nothing more frustrating in my professional life, and it does happen, and I talk about it at World Rugby all the time, so I'm not sort of telling tales out of school, where, of course, I've got people on the road with sevens tournaments, with World Cups, they're travelling, there's drink involved, and, you know, that also often causes further issues. And it does come back to us more often than not through anonymous surveys, employee value surveys, that type of thing. Oh, I witnessed such and such, you know, no names mentioned, but this sexual harassment thing happened. And it is hugely frustrating because I can do nothing with that. And I've stood on stages in front of my entire staff and said, look, talk to us. If you want to blow the whistle, please let us know. And unfortunately, even when you start investigations, quite often people clam up. And this is what's happening in the army. Both my parents are military, so, you know, my mum was in the army, so she has some real horror stories from the 70s, as you can imagine. And it's really awful to hear that things are so difficult still in the armed forces. So all I would say is, you know, please encourage people, whatever you do for a living, if you've got daughters, nieces, cousins, aunts who are working in environments where this stuff is happening, please encourage people to report, but most importantly, please encourage people to trust the process to be followed through, because I've had, again, you know, nothing that I don't talk publicly about elsewhere. I've had 2 cases where I really should have got to the point when I've been able to remove people from our industry, and I wasn't able to do that because people just feel the fear, and we've got to make, that's our responsibility as leaders to make people feel safe.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Thank you. Jenny, did you want to come in and answer the second part, which was specifically relating to male allyship, considering that, you had a lot of positive things to say about the men that you worked with? Like, how important were those relationships for you?
They were very important. You had to build up a good understanding as well with them, But I can honestly say all the pro players that I worked with were brilliant. They gave me grief, I give them grief back. I've had, with David, when I started coaching David and when we going to the Olympics 2012, we had a new head coach come in and he asked David, he said, is Jenny the right person for you? He said, I know she's the right person. And I got grief from him. But the best bit for me was every time David won a gold medal, my smile got bigger and bigger. Right? And on the day, this is true, my family can tell you, they're in the room. On the marathon day, I was not given accreditation pass to go to the finishing line. That shows you what I was putting up with. Right? It was Channel 4 that actually gave me accreditation pass. Danny Crates got me across to the finishing line. And when the head coach saw me, he just said, how did you get across here? And I said, Channel 4, because I carried the torch for Channel 4. So Danny was good enough to get me across there.
So he was really an ally for you then, wasn't he? He used his position that he was in at Channel 4 to give you only what you deserved, but that's good to hear that.
Yeah, but even, I was telling Sophie tonight, even before London, I was offered like one of the high coaching badges for London. And I said no, because I promised David I would be his one-to-one, and I wasn't about to break that promise. So I was like, sent to Coventry, not the football club. But and I never received my accreditation pass. I had to go up a day before the Olympics to get my own accreditation pass. And I thought, this guy's going to get such a shock. He really is. So every day David won his medal, I was going, 1 up, 3 to go. I counted the days, and I'll tell you something now. My smile was getting bigger. And this guy came in and was trying to be my best buddy. Hello, Jen, how are you? What sort of day are you having? I just looked at him and I thought, one day I'm going to meet you and I shall tell you what I really think of you. And I did actually meet him. I met him in Switzerland. And before we left, I said to David, I just want to go over there and have a chat to them and say goodbye to them. And I said, make sure the car's running, won't you? So he said, well, I said, don't you worry about it. I said, make sure the car's running, right? So I went over him and he's talking to people. I said, I'm going now. He said, oh, it's been really nice to see you. David looks in good shape. I said, yeah. So I said, Pete, I just got one thing to say to you, and I'm sorry, I'm going to swear. You're the biggest bullshitter I've ever met. And I said, see you around sometime, and walked off.
Got in the car, quick getaway. I love it.
Yeah. And after that, he still tried to be my best friend, but it won't work.
I remember when we spoke, Charlotte, you were talking about male allies and people that you've had some positive experiences in your career. Did you want to share a bit about that, or your thoughts on like male allyship for younger women?
Yeah, I mean, all I would say, and look, I've got, as I said, my husband's in the room, some of fantastic male friends who are hugely supportive of me in both my personal and professional life, and it is about those proper, authentic allyships. You asked me about positive experience, but if you don't mind, I'll share a sort of a negative one. I worked in the past for a very large high street bank, Bluebird involved, and International Women's Day came around, and every year there would be a huge campaign, and there would be lots of predominantly white men talking about what wonderful allies there are. And anybody who's worked in a large corporate would have seen this kind of video. And these were men who were passing up hugely capable, brilliant women for promotion every time, but they did the little video. And so it wasn't about allyship, it was about them and them getting on stage. And that's a comment I've made in panels over the years several times, which has taken a really dark turn in recent, and we're videoing this stuff, to be careful how I put this. But, you know, one of those people was Jess Staley, who I heard so Siobhan obviously recognises the name, who is very, let's say for the video, embroiled, implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein case. And this was a man who was sitting on this video, I'm a great ally of women, I want women to be promoted through the bank and all of this kind of thing. Okay, it's an extreme example, but it just shows that sort of, there are types of men, and look, women in other areas of diversity, it's, you know, but we are talking about International Women's Day today, who will use occasions like the 8th of March to really big themselves up, and that you've all seen it in big corporates, and dare I say Siobhan's probably seen it in politics. So I would just say that the allyship is the person who is in a meeting who looks to the women, and I'm a COO and I still find it difficult in a very heavily male environment to always get my word in. Yeah. I know you won't believe this when I'm talking to you, my friends are going, really? But it's true. Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned Rich Thompson from the ECB. You know, he was somebody who, when I sat around his board table, would always look to me to make sure that I wasn't just trying to say something. And, you know, often I was trying to inject myself in a conversation. A really small thing. But those of you who who work every day in those sorts of environments, just looking, men and women, looking to the quieter person, and, you know, that sometimes as a man, there's plenty of men who find that difficult as well. That kind of allyship that's tangible and daily and authentic is the stuff that really, really matters and changes the world.
Can I just add something to that? Because it's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about being a good person.
Yeah.
You know? And it's... and gender equality isn't a woman's thing. It's about all of us. And it's about, you know, we're all a little different. And when we recognise, you know, we've all felt out of it, we've all been excluded, all that sort of stuff. And it's about, that's what, you know, we're all the same, and we just need to be good people.
I once worked for a chief executive who lived by the mantra, don't be a dick.
Yeah. It's a great
and
mantra.
it is a good mantra.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Yeah, we start with this lady here with the long red hair. Is that okay? I think your hand went up first.
Rachel. Let's get straight over to Rachel. Let's go.
So I'm a big Wimbledon fan. Wimbledon's been a big part of my life since I was 8. Me and my dad were both season ticket holders in the South Stand, and we go to all the away games together. But sometimes I still get comments in the South Stand from boys, who are like, oh, you know, you don't belong in here. Why are you in here? And I will go, I want to work in sport. When I'm older, my dad works in sport. And when I say this to men, some of them still give me looks or weird comments like, why would you want to do that? So my question really is, what advice would you give to young women who are disheartened to go into sport due to toxic atmospheres from men?
Wow, yeah. Who would like to come?
Don't listen to them.
Well said. Well said, so.
I think, yeah, I mean, not from the work perspective, but definitely if I think about my athlete career, I got told plenty of times, you're too short, you're never going to make it. You know, you've always got people who sort of are negative about what you want to do, but if you have a passion and you know you follow that, then, you know, I think, and from personal experience, you can achieve whatever you want to. So just, I think, hold on to that and keep persevering.
Believe in yourself.
It's really difficult, though, when you're hearing that stuff sort of come at you to sort of... Because confidence, for want of a, is a learned experience. And if your experience is saying that, you know, what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing, it's really hard. But that point about sort of almost having a North Star, that you sort of, you keep just striving for it and not giving up, but also recognising that sometimes it's a bit hard. But just keeping at it, and you get there in the end. You might, and being open to what that thing is, that it's sort of the North Star isn't, I'm going to be, I don't know, chief executive of AFC Wimbledon at this time on this day. Life does not necessarily work that way, But if you're sort of got those general sort of thing, and you're open to experience as it comes in front of you, I think would be my advice.
Amazing. We are sort of running out of time, so I would like to take a couple of quickish questions, if that's okay. Oh, yep, here we go.
Hello. Brilliant evening. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. But this is specifically aimed at Jenny because I've known Jenny for many, many years, and I love this woman with all my heart. She's just fantastic and a great representative of Wimbledon. But Jenny, you were a fully fledged member of the Crazy Gang. Right, you've talked, you've skirted around the edges, but you haven't dished any dirt for all the, because we're all Wimbledon fans here, right? Don't we all want to hear a little bit about the Crazy Gang? I think we do. Now, you've told me one specific story. They were running around in a circle, and one of them did something, and then you did something back to him.
I'll tell you what, Ivor, why don't you tell us the story?
Well, you told me the story, so.
Yeah, but I can't remember it.
So, okay, this is about a certain Vincent Jones. It was one of your early days of training at Richmond Park.
Is it 9:30 yet?
Should I carry on, Jen?
Go on then.
Do you want to tell it? You tell it. No,
honestly, I can't remember it. I'm being honest and truthful.
So Jenny told me this story about, it was one of her first days, if not her first day of training the Crazy Gang, and they were at Richmond Park and they were doing a little warm-up. And it's not me. It's not Vinny, oh dear. And all the players were jogging around, and as they were jogging around, Vincent Jones decided to drop his strides, and he dropped his trousers as they were running around. And Jenny then blew the whistle, made them all line up, and they all thought this was really funny that Vinny had been playing up and so on. And she said to Jones, step forward. And Jones stepped forward, and Jenny went up to Mr. Jones and pulled his shorts open like that, peered in and said, "Is that all you've got?"
Hang on, Ivor, I didn't get the short bit. No,
You didn't?
I just said my old man's was better than that.
Oh, right, there you go. I knew we were there or thereabouts, Jen. Absolutely brilliant. What an absolute legend of the Crazy Gang and of Wimbledon Football Club, Jenny is brilliant. Thank you.
Hi, I'd also like to give a thank you to Jenny. She's spoken a lot this evening about all the work that she's actually done with the men's side and the work that she's actually done with David Weir. What she hasn't told anybody about this evening is all the work she's actually done with ladies football players. Back in the early 2000s, my daughter was playing for Fulham and also then came on to play for Wimbledon. Jenny's fitness training sessions at Kingsmeadow track, the girls hated it, but they actually loved it and they went on to do great things with it. And then also, so did Wimbledon ladies. Okay, thank you.
This to anyone. Jenny, I just want to ask for any tips for anyone to say to anyone to say what to say to for the future. Next tips for people to say.
Say that again.
Tips like giving generation some tips, advice to anyone to give to anyone involved in sports.
So, for example, Rachel just there, next generation. What advice would you give her to coming into football, for getting involved?
Or any sport?
Well, I gathered what she was saying, a little bit unsure. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and the people around you. You know, never put doubt in your own mind. You know, if you're capable of doing it, go and do it. Don't let anyone stop you.
Amazing. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for your question. I think we'll have two more. So I did see the man with the yellow T-shirt. We could go to him. Is that okay?
Thank you. Name's Lee, Wimbledon fan. I came tonight because I had a chat with Kerry and Jane a couple of months back about, I went to see them at a match because I'd read something that really bothered me about women's experience of football. So I kind of raised it with them and they said, well, come along and listen to one of our sessions. And I'll come back to that point in a minute if I may. But as I was thinking about coming down tonight and thinking about the fact that I had a conversation with Kerry and Jane about coming down, I started thinking about all the women and girls that are involved in Wimbledon and started scribbling down a few names, sort of many of them are here, and going back over my time being a Wimbledon fan, and Colette's here, for example, you know, back in the days of WISA, which was so fundamental to how this football club now exists as it is. People like Colette, people like Mags, people like Karen, people like Luke Carlton-Kelly, people like Nicole Hammond were all driving that, you know, all the time with us when we were fighting against the forces that were trying to take our football club away. I look here in this room today, there's Mandy's over here, and there's the other Mandy who was here. I bother them all the time during the week for stuff to do with things at reception or stuff I'm doing with the flags or whatever, hanging flags in the ground. I think of people like there's Hannah's here, I see Michelle's here, I see Jane's here, all on the Don's Trust board on the PLC. I see people like Esther here and Kerry again and others that I've known for years and years and years and years as Wimbledon fans. And all I think is, you know, great women, great Wimbledon fans doing great things for our great club. And, you know, the chance to come here tonight and just think about the contribution of women to our club has just been really, really quite a good thing to do. The point that I had, which is slightly more frustrating, which is what got me talking to them in the first place, was a piece that I read that said, at a football club like and Wimbledon as an example, of course, do women, girls and women who come feel that they feel a bit put off on a Saturday afternoon because of the atmosphere that there is at the games? And I genuinely hope that, as raucous as you want things to be at Wimbledon, to get the crowd behind it, that women don't feel like that. I note the point from the panellists about feeling welcome at the club, and I hope that extends to kind of the Saturday afternoon sort of match day experience when the crowd's a little bit lively and bouncing around and making a bit of a racket. I noted Rachel's point about maybe not feeling that in the South Stand and places, but I was just, you know, really keen to make the point that when trying to make an atmosphere at a football game and make it really, really loud and raucous, I wouldn't want at a club like Wimbledon female fans to feel that they couldn't be part of that and couldn't be included and couldn't be welcomed. So, thank you.
We can respond, and this will be the last thing, and then we will wrap up. So please do go ahead and respond. Yeah.
Well, I would say that as a female football fan, we feel safe going to games because we're surrounded by people like you who champion us, who make us feel safe, who involve us in that atmosphere. Because, you know, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to be right in the middle of it. I wanted to be involved in it. And people like you made that possible. So that's the allyship.
That's lovely. I think that's a really... Oh, sorry. I think that's a really nice place to and positive place to end the evening on. I'm really pleased that you all came to share tonight with us, and I'm just especially grateful to our four amazing panellists. Jenny, please go ahead.
I think the men and the women have got very important games this week, and they need a lot of support, especially the girls, right? The men, I think, need a lot more shouting from the terraces. Get behind them. When your team's down, you need to lift them. And going quiet is not lifting anyone. So get behind them and lift them. And the same with the girls.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much, everyone, and happy International Women's Day.
Just to say thank you, Hannah, I know you've got to run, so thank you so much. Thank you to our fantastic panel tonight. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for those who were watching on the live stream. Really want to shout out Stu, who's really helped with the live streaming tonight and getting it working. First time in here. So you've got some little cards on your desks about Wowza and how you can join us if you haven't already joined us. And we hope to see you at the games this weekend. Thanks, everybody.